Okay, we've been doing this every week. I'm excited to do it again. It is time for Rise, Repeat, or Retreat. We do one division a week. We're going to get through every single one. If you've missed any of them, get out there on YouTube. You can find the highlights from the divisions we've already done. And we're doing, I think it's fair to say, the single greatest division in the history of football and the best division in football this year. The AFC West, no bias at all. The AFC West is the division. Our friendships may rely on some particular answers on this. Here's the concept for anyone that's new. We're taking a look at where we are on this division today, any of these teams, versus where we were on these teams a year ago today. So how do we feel about these teams before last season versus how do we feel about these teams before this season? Let's start with one that's probably the easiest. The Kansas City Chiefs finished 15-2. Vegas says that the over-under on it, 11.5 wins. So rise, repeat, or retreat. Frank Schwab, where are you on the Chiefs today versus a year ago today?
I mean, they're just going to be repeat for a while, right? Like, this is a team that could have easily won a third straight Super Bowl. They went up against the Eagles buzzsaw, but they got further than anybody else trying to three-peat. The foundation is strong. You get Rashee Rice back. It just seems like a team that's going to be owning the AFC West for a while. I know the Chargers are a team I really like with Jim Harbaugh and all that. And obviously the Broncos made big strides with Sean Payton. But the Chiefs are just who they are, and they're going to win way more one-score games than they should, and they're going to throw off all of the analytics that say they shouldn't. They're not really this good, but whatever. They're going to win probably between 12 and 14 games, win the AFC West again, and be a Super Bowl contender. And I think that's just going to be how it is for the next few years. There's no reason to think there's any big fall coming. I think that they're doing well to restock the shelves. Xavier Worthy's going to be a playmaker for them, and they, did some things to fix their offensive line issues. They're just the same. They're just a metronome at this point. The Kansas City Chiefs are a repeat for me, and they will be for a while.
Yeah, I'm fine with repeat. I think they're at that level now where there's some element of autopilot with, Patrick Mahomes and Andrew Reid working together, and they've done a good job, I think, of addressing, the offensive line this offseason. They've remixed it a little bit. I think, when you look at whether it's Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice returning and being healthy, if he is playing at the level he was playing at last year, I think you could have maybe an all-pro caliber wide receiver if he's a guy who's in there for 17, games and still has the speed and, just everything dynamic that he was starting to round into form. I guess my question is, what's the running game going to look like? Are we absolutely sure the offensive line is going to come together the way they need it, given the changes? And then, defensively, there's a couple, as much as I believe in Trent McDuffie, the rest of the cornerback room, I'm like, okay, do they have the depth there? Are there going to be some holes we don't necessarily see? But the talent level is there. It sounds like, from what we hear with Travis Kelce, that he wants to show up completely in shape this year, which I think was a criticism last year with the Chiefs, that it took him time to kind of get himself going, and then it just kind of never really kicked into that high gear. And he has wanted to, from everything we've heard, he has really wanted to remedy that this offseason. So he's motivated. I think at the very least this year, I would look at them as being a repeat, as long as there's not some catastrophic injury failure on the offensive line.
Yeah, I think at some point too, the fact, and I'm not even saying this as a sarcastic response, the fact that Travis isn't on tour with Taylor, it's harder to stay in shape on tour than it is to stay in shape when you're in one place. So I think you get a better version of Kelce. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to repeat on Kansas City, but I'm also going to press pause on any conversation throughout the regular season about why it doesn't look good, why it isn't, just doesn't look like they're right, why Kelce's a slow starter. Like, this team understands how to reserve their turbo button until they get to the playoffs. There's no reason to think they won't do it again. So I'm repeat on the Chiefs, and I'm going to do a better job this regular season of not faulting them when they're 10-1 and it just doesn't look the way it should look, because I don't care anymore. What about the Chargers? 11-6 last year. I thought the Chargers would need a little bit more of adjustment. So I thought the Chargers were going to be good, not great last year. I feel like they are an 11 or 12 win team. So I'm I'm rise on the Chargers simply because they exceeded what I thought they would do last year. They pick up Amari and Hampton. It just feels like the Chargers are ready to explode to me. C-Rob, where are you on the Chargers?
Yeah, I like rise for them. Not only Hampton, but you pick up Najee Harris. Like to me, there's no question that they're going to continue to run the football. It's. I think maybe the question I have is how does the wide receiver room now round out? Can can we get Justin Herbert? Is he going to be healthy and clicking? Throughout the entire season. Lad McConkey, I think the way he played as a rookie was unbelievable. I'm like, can he actually exceed that in 2025? I don't know. I mean, he's not going to be a secret anymore. That's for sure. So to me, I think in terms of the additions that they made in the offseason, in terms of what Harbaugh is, fundamentally wanting to run the football and be that kind of an offense, he leaned into that with the personnel acquisitions. Again, I think health permitting, especially with Herbert. I feel like Herbert is dinged every single season. There's something small that's nagging, or there's something that's not quite right with him. It's going to be an important season, I think, for him to put it all together. But I think health permitting, it's definitely a rise for me.
Yeah, for me, it's rise, rise, rise because of one guy, and that's Jim Harbaugh. He proved again last year he's one of the best football coaches on the planet, even when he doesn't have guys on the sideline stealing signals from the other team. But I just think that it was going to take. I was with you, Fitz. I was like, this guy's been gone from the NFL for 9 years. He doesn't. They had a lot of salary cap issues last year, so I didn't think they had a good offseason. I'm like, there's no way Jim Harbaugh's going to come in and have a great first season with the Chargers. And then we're reminded this is probably one of the 5 best coaches in the NFL after even 9 years off in college. He's won everywhere he's gone, done everything he needs to do. And I thought that we saw a big change in Justin Herbert. He went from being this high volume guy who had a lot of highlights and was probably overrated based on what he had actually done to being a very efficient, lower volume quarterback. I thought he was a completely different player last year. I thought by far the best season of Justin Herbert's career last year. That's the Harbaugh influence. You saw the draft they had last year with Alt and then McConkey in the second round was just a grand slam pick, it looks like. So I don't know if they're going to get there this year as far as beating the Chiefs out for the division, but I think Andy Reid versus Jim Harbaugh is going to be theater for the next 5 years. I just think that this team is really coming. They're going to be good. They're going to be a Super Bowl contender quicker than we think. I'm buying all the stock in the Chargers I can.
What about, you mentioned great coaches. We'll continue that spin now. Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos, another team that I thought would take a year to get it right. I wasn't sure about Bo Nix. Like, I will plant my flag loudly, y'all, when I'm wrong. I was wrong about the Denver Broncos. So last year I thought the Broncos would be better, but not better. And they were 10-7. The over-under on them 9.5. I'm still trying to make sense of Denver, C-Rob. Where are you on them?
Well, this is the difficulty of this division, because you look at everybody can't be either, static with, like, so we're looking at the Chiefs and we're going, they're going to be good. They're always good, and then we look at the Chargers and go, that's a rise team. And then we look at the Broncos and it feels like it might be a rise team. They can't all be that, right? It's like unless the Raiders are just going to be an absolute smoking wreck this year, which is possible. But look, I have a hard time looking at the Broncos though and going, they're not going to be better this year than they were last year. I think defensively, they have a chance to be one of the best defenses in the league. I think Dre Greenlaw is going to be an unbelievably great acquisition for them on defense. I think offensively, RJ Harvey, J.K. Dobbins, let's see what that ultimately looks like. But there's no question Sean Payton wants to run the heck out of the football. Bo Nix is mobile too. That I think factors into that running game. Marvin Mims Jr., can he take a step forward and really showcase himself as a number 2 wideout in the league in terms of volume? Cortland Sutton, can he continue to play at that high level? I think the offensive line, again, healthy, I think is definitely a unit that can protect. So to me, it comes down to, of the quarterbacks in 2024, the rookie quarterbacks who we thought had pretty good seasons, it's hard to believe they all, like, somebody doesn't run into the CJ Stroud sophomore sort of, man, we thought this would be better than it is. And, Stroud was affected by the offensive line. Some quarterback is going to be affected, whether it's Drake May isn't able to take that step forward, or Michael Penix isn't able to take the step forward. Jaden Daniels takes a step backward like Stroud did between 2023 and 2024. that leaves me, staring at Knicks and going, what, can Knicks play at that level, which I think a lot of people, he far surpassed expectations. In year one, there were times where we argued about whether he was better than Jaden Daniels, and down the stretch of that schedule. So I think they are a rise team, but I say that with a hint of consternation because I feel like a quarterback is going to hit a wall here, and I'm not exactly sure who it is. And I think Knicks could be a candidate only because I feel like he played so above his head in 2024.
Yeah, there's some plexiglass principle involved with the Broncos here. They rose so much last year on defense with Knicks
Yeah.
that there almost has to be some pullback, I guess. But how could you not say this is a rise? Like the Broncos, I was way too low on them last year, I'll be honest, because I didn't really believe in Knicks coming in and being the sixth quarterback drafted in his own draft class and being a star right away. But he was. And the defense was far better than I thought it would be. And the offensive line came together like crazy. That's one of the best offensive lines in football now. So everything looks good on paper for the Broncos. And again, it comes down to I underestimated Sean Payton. I just, as you pointed out, C-Rob, like how many times have I ever gone under blankety blank wins, Sean Payton said. So you just look and you say, yeah, Sean Payton is the floor to this team. They're never going to be bad with Sean Payton, and they're probably going to be pretty good. So everything on paper looks good for them. You worry about a little bit of pullback. Defense, especially improvement like that, isn't always sticky from year to year. So you wonder, like Patrick Surtain's not going to win Defensive Player of the Year again, right? Like that was a crazy season for that group. Can they still be a top 10 unit though? Yeah, probably. And again, the offensive line gives that offense a really good foundation. It's a very good team. And as long as you have Sean Payton, you're going to be pretty good. So yeah, it's a rise for me. The Broncos are a good team, and they should be for a while, especially if I don't think, and even if Bo Nix does regress a little bit, which could happen. We've seen that sophomore slump. I don't think he's going away. I think this is the guy for the Broncos the next few years, and he's going to have a really good career.
I might be a repeat, by the way. Now, I mean, I might be because they played over their head. I kind of felt like they exceeded expectations last year. Now that I hear Frank kind of walk through it again, I'm kind of like, maybe they're just a repeat, which is not bad. I don't think it's a bad thing if they would be a repeat team. Maybe that's kind of where I am. I think Frank talked me out of the rise.
And it's the division. I can't get them higher than third. I can't. I love the Chargers.
Everybody
I love the
can't
Chiefs,
be great.
So
in
where
the
do you go?
Right.
Well, everybody can be because like it's the best defense in the division. I can't go down on the Broncos. It's the best defense in the division. So I'm rise on the Broncos. All right, that brings us to my beloved Raiders, who were 4-13 last year. Caveat here: last year I thought they'd be about a 6-win team. They underachieved. My glorious mark of 6 wins. They underachieved last year. Weird to me. The defense last year was supposed to be the strength, and we knew the offense was going to be a work in progress, to say it gently. And now it feels like there's been a just catastrophic switch because the offense looks like it could be pretty good, and the defense could just be an abject disaster. I mean, they've got a defensive line that, if healthy, could be very problematic, and the rest of the defense is a bunch of unproven maybes, I don't knows. So, Frank, our friendship is on the line. Where are you on my beloved Raiders?
I mean, last year, as we based this exercise on, we were talking about a team coached by Antonio Pierce, whose quarterbacks were Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. How could I not be a rise? Of course the Raiders are in better shape as a franchise because even though I think the Pete Carroll hire is weird, to hire the oldest coach in NFL history for a rebuilding team, I get it. They're trying to change a culture, and Pete Carroll can do that. And the quarterback situation is a lot better. I don't think Geno Smith is great, but he's at least an adult. He can run the offense. And then you add on the fact that all of a sudden the Raiders have 2 superstar players on offense. We have to see Ashton Jeanty do it, but Brock Bowers is a superstar. When you get in your fantasy drafts, folks, we're going to have 2 Las Vegas Raiders go in like the top 18 picks. And I know fantasy is not reality, but we all know Brock Bowers might be the best tight end in football. Ashton Jeanty, the ceiling for him is sky high. He went 6th in the draft for a good reason. So I see the progress the Raiders are making. Now, look, they play in this really, really tough division. I don't know that they're going to get to 8, 9, 10 wins or anything like that, but they're, as a franchise, I think are in a much, much better place than they were a year ago. There seems to be some direction. We'll see how the Carroll thing works out. I still have my skepticism about it, but again, he's going to leave that place better than he found it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to say rise, but it's a little bit of like a cubic zirconia here, right? Like,
I got so much joy. I got so much. I'm over here is good. Go ahead.
We're starting with such a low bar, right? 4-13. So if you go 5 wins, that's a rise. If you go 6 wins, that's a rise. I mean, I'm not going to say it's any kind of a success, but let's say if the Raiders went 7-10, we would be like, okay, all right, they're starting to turn it around. That's definitely better than what we saw in 2024. I think Pete Carroll is worth that, just in terms of a motivator. I think the time out of football, he's clearly, I think, refreshed. His head's cleared a little bit. Pete is who he is. I think he's going to be like this into his 80s. We keep talking about his age, but he's like the youngest old guy we've ever met. We always make that joke, but it actually is true. And as Frank said, they got a quarterback in that I think can be solid, right? Which is something they have lacked for a while, from one season to the next. I think at the very least, Smith can come in, run the offense that Pete Carroll wants. I think they'll run the football with Genty, and let's not forget Chip Kelly as an offensive coordinator is going to, that's a sizable addition for them as well. I wouldn't sleep on Mostert. So I actually think the depth at running back and the kind of combination between Genty and Raheem Mostert is pretty interesting. The wide receivers, I'm curious to see how that takes form, but I'm with Frank. I think Brock Bowers might as well be considered a wide receiver in that room as well, if not your number one. So I think from what Pete brings to the table, at least just from a baseline offensive standpoint, I think this team takes a step forward from 4 wins. I don't know how far that goes, so I will say they're a rise, but it may be a rise to like 6 wins or 7 wins. But
I mean, look, I'll take it. Look, at the end of the day, I'm rise. But I think 7-10 is sort of where I think the Raiders finish this season. But to your point, Chip Kelly's the highest paid offensive coordinator in the NFL. Pete Carroll, while he is old, I think we can all say that, fine. Let's remember that the last 2 people that we elected to run the United States of America were older than Pete Carroll is today. If you can run an entire country past that age, I would presume that you can run a football program. Well, it's not just saying, as a general principle, that I'm not as scared of his age as some people are. I think the point of bringing Pete Carroll in was to make sure that the organization points in the right direction for the long term. And then Brock Bowers, as you mentioned, Ashton Genty, as you mentioned, and reminder, Jacoby Myers, the wide receiver that we haven't mentioned, he had over 1,000 yards receiving last year with Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew as his quarterbacks.
What if Jack Beck hits? Like he's a good prospect. I like him. Like the Raiders are going places. Like it's just their ceiling is the best last place team in the NFL. That's their ceiling. I'm sorry.
And Besh had one of the highest contested catch rates in all of college football last year, and he's combined with the quarterback that's considered to be accurate. I think there are reasons to have a ton of hope on the offensive side of the ball, and there's reasons to believe that the only way the defense holds up is if they just murder quarterbacks week in and week out. That means Christian Wilkins has to be healthy. We don't know if he is, and the back end of the defense is a problem. So I'm not sitting here throwing confetti parades for playoffs, but I think that getting this team to 7 wins, maybe 8 in a glorious year. But at the end of the day, I think a year from now, right now, at the end of this season, we're saying, hey, the Raiders are poised to take another jump. And it's been a long time since I said that. So I'll take that as a rise. Look at that. The guy's just giving me a beacon of light in a dark, dark world. We'll end on a high note. You can follow us on social media. You know that, at Yahoo Schwab, at Charles Robinson, at Jason Fitz. Rate, review, subscribe to the podcast. Even when it's a slow time, we still love hanging out. We still love talking to you. We'll be here every single week all the way up to the season start. So be sure that you rate, review, subscribe, so that you're getting every single episode. Huge thanks to Stone and everybody else behind the scenes that work their ass off to make this show as awesome as it is. We appreciate them, and we appreciate you guys. Have a great week.